All right, jumping right into it, today's deep dive is on USAID. And wow, there's a lot to go through. We've got accusations about uh, how they're spending money, even rumors that they're spreading fake news. And somehow Elon Musk is caught up in it all.
It's certainly a lot to untangle.
Yeah.
And the stuff you gave me, the videos, social media posts, news articles, it's all over the place, politically speaking, too.
Totally. So what we're doing today is trying to make sense of it. What's really happening with USAID? What's everyone saying about it? And what's all of this mean for them and for U.S. foreign policy?
I think a good way to start would be to um, quickly go over what USAID actually is, for anyone who isn't totally sure.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. USAID, it stands for the U.S. Agency for International Development, and they pretty much handle all that civilian foreign aid that, the U.S. sends to other countries.
Exactly. They're like the U.S. government's helping hand, reaching out to countries that need it, especially developing nations. They do a lot, from disaster relief to those long-term development projects.
And we're not talking about, small amounts of money here. This agency manages billions of dollars every year.
Yeah, billions, with a B. So you can see why people start freaking out when there are accusations about them mismanaging that money.
Absolutely. And those accusations are coming from all sides. Some sources are saying that USAID is funding, quote, disinformation campaigns overseas, basically trying to manipulate public opinion in other countries.
That term disinformation campaigns, it means they're spreading stuff that's false or misleading on purpose so they
Yeah.
can influence what people believe and how they act. And some people are saying that USAID is doing exactly that, maybe to push, U.S. interests.
And then there are the accusations that USAID money is being spent on transgender surgeries in other countries. That one is causing a lot of controversy, especially from some sources on the right who see it as wasting taxpayer dollars.
Definitely. It does make you think about the whole purpose of foreign aid.
Yeah.
Should it be promoting certain social agendas, or should it just stick to pure humanitarian help and development?
There's also this claim that USAID money is somehow connected to Black Lives Matter protests, even riots. It's just adding fuel to the fire.
That seems to be coming from this idea that USAID might be supporting groups that are linked to the Black Lives Matter movement. Those saying this see it as even more proof that the agency is pushing a political agenda instead of doing what it's supposed to do.
So we have accusations about misuse of money, possible political bias, and even claims of information manipulation. It's no surprise that people are demanding investigations and accountability.
It's not just regular people making noise either. Even some members of Congress are starting to question how USAID is operating and if they're being overseen properly.
And then you throw Trump and Musk into this already crazy situation, and things get really interesting.
Yeah, to say the least. We're talking about a presidential order to stop billions of dollars in foreign aid going through USAID, mass firings, and people being put on leave, maybe even over 1,000 employees. And then enter Elon Musk.
Now that's a plot twist. What's he doing in all of this?
That's the million-dollar question. Some sources are saying he's been given access to classified information within USAID that he shouldn't have. There are even accusations that he's getting rid of nonpartisan leadership at the agency, basically trying to, reshape it to fit his own vision.
Some of what we saw was pretty intense. Protests outside USA buildings, people chanting about Trump being Musk's puppet and accusing Musk of taking over our data and breaking the law every day.
It's a very tense situation, a lot of strong feelings and accusations being thrown around, and it does make you ask some serious questions about transparency, accountability, and if power is being misused.
What are the reasons behind all of this? Is this actually about cleaning up corruption at USA, or is it more like a power grab trying to, dismantle the whole agency?
That's the big question we're looking at, isn't it? And what could happen because of this is huge. If USAID is seriously weakened or even shut down, it would have a major impact on U.S. foreign policy, humanitarian work, and, global stability in general.
No doubt. We're talking about programs that deal with famine, disease, and poverty all over the world. The stakes are incredibly high, and the potential for harm is very real.
And that's just the start. We haven't even talked about how this could damage America's reputation globally, or what Senator Rubio's role is in all of this.
Whoa, hold on. I definitely want to hear more about that. But first, maybe let's step back a bit and unpack this whole Trump-Musk thing a little more, because honestly, that's the detail that's really blowing my mind right now.
It is a really intriguing part of the story. And to get it, I think we need to look at the bigger picture of how the relationship between technology and government is changing.
Okay, I'm all ears. Because I have to admit, the image of those Doge engineers, as young as 19 that Trump mentioned, are working on this whole USAID thing. It's both fascinating and kind of scary.
It really blurs the line between Silicon Valley and Washington, doesn't it? Makes you wonder who has access to important information and how decisions are actually being made.
I mean, on the one hand, it's pretty cool to think about people who are tech savvy, bringing fresh ideas and solutions to the government. But then on the other hand, you have to wonder about, like, conflicts of interest and whether they have enough experience to deal with these really complicated global issues.
You're right, it's a delicate balance, and one that we need to pay close attention to as this all unfolds, because the impact could be huge, not just for USA, but for the future of U.S. foreign policy as a whole.
So we've got allegations of financial wrongdoing, a freeze on funds from the president, mass firings, Elon Musk maybe calling the shots, and a ton of questions with no answers. It's a lot to take in, but I'm starting to see how it all connects.
And we're just getting started. We still need to dig into what this controversy means for the rest of the world and what role people like Senator Rubio play in it.
You're right. There's so much more to uncover. Let's take a quick breath and then dive back in.
Back again for more of our USA Deep Dive. Seems like the deeper we go, the more complicated it gets.
Yeah, it's like one of those conspiracy movies. You think you figured it out, and then bam, another twist comes out of nowhere.
And one of the most worrying twists here is what this might be doing to America's image in the world.
Right. The U.S. has always been, like, the big guy when it comes to humanitarian aid. But with all this mess around USAID, it makes you wonder if people are starting to see them differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A bunch of sources are saying this could make the U.S. look, unreliable, even untrustworthy on a global level, especially if other countries see their aid getting messed up or, like, the U.S. not sticking to its promises.
Makes you think, what does this do to, like, our diplomatic relationships? Can the U.S. still influence things globally with all this going on?
Some experts are saying a weaker U.S. side could be a good thing for our rivals, like China or Russia. They're already doing more and more foreign aid themselves.
So it's not just about the aid programs themselves, it's about the whole balance of power globally. This could really shift things.
Exactly. It shows that foreign aid isn't just about being nice. It's a strategic tool in international relations.
Speaking of tools, we can't forget about the information side of what USAID does. Remember those allegations about them spreading fake news? Those disinformation campaigns?
Yeah, that's a sensitive topic and hard to figure out for sure. But it does bring up some big questions about the role of information in foreign policy and, like, the ethics of trying to influence people.
I mean, any country involved in global stuff is going to try to shape how people see things, right? But when does it cross the line from regular diplomacy to straight up propaganda and manipulation?
That's the tough question. And with social media, it's even harder to answer these days. Information spreads so fast and it's so hard to tell what's real and what's fake.
Some sources are even saying that this whole controversy about USAID and disinformation campaigns, maybe that's disinformation itself, a way to, like, make the agency look bad and stop them from doing their work.
It's a crazy mirror situation, isn't it? Shows how hard it is to navigate all this information, where what people think is often more important than what's actually true.
Speaking of what people think, we can't ignore how this whole USAID thing is playing out on social media.
Yeah, it's a war zone out there.
Yeah.
People from every political side are weighing in on the accusations, the firings, Musk getting involved. It's just a constant stream of opinions, hot takes, and conspiracy theories.
And who knows what to believe? It seems like everyone has some agenda, and they're all shouting their version of the truth as loud as they can.
It reminds us to be careful about the information we consume, especially with something as complicated and politically charged as this USAID thing.
You know, one thing that keeps popping up is this idea that USAID might be losing credibility because of all this.
That's a valid concern. The agency relies on its staff. A lot of them have dedicated their careers to international development.
And if they're seeing their coworkers getting fired or their programs being cut, that's gotta have a negative effect.
For sure. It could lead to a brain drain, where the smart people leave USAID for other jobs. That would make the agency even weaker.
Make you think about the future, too. Will talented people still want to work at USAID if they see it as, like, unstable or too political?
Important questions, and tough to answer right now. We're still in the middle of this storm. Can't really predict what the long-term consequences will be.
Well, let's zoom in on one particular storm within this bigger one. The whole debate about USA supposedly funding transgender surgeries in other countries.
That's become a hot topic, especially for those on the conservative side. They see it as proof that USAID is pushing a progressive agenda.
Strong opinions on both sides, that's for sure. Some people say the U.S. government shouldn't be paying for those kinds of procedures overseas, especially when people here in the U.S. are still struggling to get basic health care.
Others argue that transgender healthcare is a human right, and USAID should support everyone getting the care they need, no matter where they live.
It's complicated, touches on ethics, culture, and money. And I think it shows this bigger tension about what USAID is supposed to be doing in the world.
Should they focus on immediate needs, food, water, shelter, or should they also be involved in broader social and political goals like human rights and gender equality?
That's a big question at the heart of this whole controversy, and I don't think there's an easy answer anytime soon.
But it's worth thinking about because these decisions about USAID's priorities and funding have real-world effects on millions of people globally.
It's also worth noting that while this transgender surgeries debate is getting a lot of attention, it's just one small part of what USAID does. There are tons of other programs and initiatives that they support, and those are facing uncertainty too.
Good point. Can't lose sight of the big picture. There are initiatives for fighting hunger, getting people clean water, supporting education in developing countries. All of those are potentially at risk as this plays out.
And if those programs get disrupted, it could be devastating for communities all over the world.
It reminds us that while politicians are fighting in Washington, there are real people whose lives are directly affected by what happens to USAID.
And those people often have the least power to change things. It makes you think.
It does. And it shows how important transparency, accountability, and responsible leadership are when it comes to managing foreign aid.
We've covered a lot, but it feels like we've barely scratched the surface.
So much more to explore. The global implications, what people like Senator Rubio are doing, the potential for long-term damage to USAID's reputation, and of course the big question, what will Elon Musk ultimately do with the agency?
It's almost too much to process, but I guess that's why we do these deep dives, right? To try to understand what's going on and help our listeners see what's at stake.
Absolutely. We may not have all the answers, but by looking at all these different angles, hopefully we can shed some light on this critical moment in U.S. foreign policy.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been digging into this USAID controversy, and man, it's a deep one.
It really is. So many layers of accusations, political stuff, and it affects the whole world. Quite the journey.
As we come up for air, though, it feels like a good time to, summarize what we've found. What are the big takeaways from all this USAID stuff?
One thing that really struck me is how divided everyone is on this issue. Politically, it's like the different views on USAID are a perfect reflection of how divided the U.S. is politically right now.
Yeah, that's true. We saw it in the sources, too. Some people think USAID is this amazing example of American generosity and, global leadership.
Yeah.
Others see it as a wasteful system that's pushing a political agenda.
It's a huge contrast. And this whole controversy seems to be making those tensions even worse, making it even harder to talk about foreign aid in a productive way.
Makes you think, how is the U.S. supposed to act on the world stage when it's fighting with itself like this?
Some sources are worried that it makes the U.S. look weak or unsure of itself. It could make it harder for us to get things done in terms of foreign policy.
But beyond the political battles, there are real people who will be affected by this. If USAID programs get cut or shut down, the people who rely on that aid are going to feel it.
Exactly. We're talking about setbacks in the fight against poverty, hunger, and disease in some of the most vulnerable places in the world.
It reminds us that these aren't just political arguments, there are real lives on the line.
Another big takeaway for me has been just how complicated USAID actually is. It's not just about giving money. It's a massive operation with thousands of employees, tons of projects, and a web of partnerships all over the globe.
You're right. It's easy to simplify it and just focus on the money, but there's so much more to it.
And as we saw, any changes to such a complicated system can have consequences you don't expect.
Which brings us to another big theme, technology, and especially Elon Musk playing a part in all of this.
Yeah. His involvement has definitely made things more interesting. Makes you wonder about the line between tech and government, the role of private citizens in shaping public policy, and how it can lead to both good and bad changes.
I still can't get that image of the Doge engineers working on the USAID situation out of my head. It's fascinating and a little creepy at the same time.
It shows this trend of tech people getting more involved in government stuff.
And that comes with its own set of problems, like conflicts of interest and maybe not fully understanding the nuances of international diplomacy.
Totally new territory. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out in the long run.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the most important thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think it's crucial to realize this isn't just some random event. It's part of a bigger trend. People are more and more skeptical of foreign aid and really institutions in general.
We're seeing it everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Global health, climate change, trade.
Exactly. And I think it's happening for a few reasons. Misinformation, lack of transparency, and this feeling that these big institutions are out of touch with regular people.
And we have to admit, there have been valid criticisms of USAID in the past, too. People have been concerned about bureaucracy, things not being efficient, and a lack of accountability.
Those are real concerns. They need to be addressed. If USAID wants people to trust them and support them, they need to show they're using taxpayer money well and getting real results.
So where do we go from here? What are the solutions to all of this?
Well, I think part of it is USAID needs to be more transparent and accountable.
Yeah, being more open about what they're doing, their successes, their failures, that would help build trust.
Another part is we need to have better conversations about foreign aid as a society. More informed, more nuanced.
Get past all the political fighting and recognize that it's complicated. There are trade-offs.
Foreign aid isn't a magic solution, but it can be a powerful tool for creating peace, prosperity, and protecting human rights around the world.
In the end, the future of USA and even U.S. foreign policy as a whole depends on our ability to have these difficult conversations, to hold our leaders accountable, and to demand better.
Well put. I think that's a great place to leave it.
We've covered so much today, and this story is still unfolding. So keep digging into these issues, stay informed, and keep having thoughtful discussions about the role of foreign aid in our world.
And, as always, the deeper you dive, the more you discover.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.